Mysterious arrival. The human colony of Arcadia was a peaceful place on the far side of the galaxy. Its skies were blue, its forests lush, and its people content. They had lived here for over 2 decades, far from the wars and chaos of Earth. But peace has a strange way of ending without warning. One evening, as the colony prepared for nightfall, strange signals began to disrupt their communication systems. The signals were faint at first, just bursts of static and rhythmic beats. But soon, they grew louder and more structured, almost like a pattern trying to speak. Commander Elena Ward, the head of security, was alerted immediately. She stood in the control room, staring at the data on the screen. "This isn't natural," she said, her voice firm. "Something, or someone, is trying to communicate." The signal was coming from the deep forest, an area no one dared to venture into at night. The forest was vast and uncharted, filled with thick trees and strange creatures. The colonists called it the Green Abyss because once something went in, it rarely came out. Elena called for a meeting with the colony's council. "We need to investigate," she said, her tone calm but urgent. "If it's a threat, we need to know now." The council hesitated. The colony had never faced an external danger before. But the signals were growing stronger, and ignoring them didn't seem wise. Finally, the council agreed to send a small scout team. Elena handpicked 4 members: Carter, the skilled tracker; Mia, the tech expert; Raj, the weapons specialist; and Sophia, the medic. Each of them was experienced and trusted. Together, they would uncover the source of the mysterious signals. The team set out just before sunset, their boots crunching against the soft forest floor. The air was damp, and shadows danced between the trees. Each step they took felt heavier as the forest grew darker. Carter led the way, his sharp eyes scanning for any unusual signs. "Over here," Carter whispered after walking for nearly an hour. The team gathered around him and saw glowing footprints on the ground. The footprints were large, almost double the size of a human foot, and they emitted a faint blue light. "What kind of creature leaves glowing tracks?" Maya asked, her voice shaky but curious. Raj tightened his grip on his weapon. "I don't know, but I don't like it." The team followed the glowing tracks cautiously. The signals from their equipment were getting stronger, and the rhythmic beeps began to echo in the air around them. It felt like they were walking into a trap, but they couldn't turn back now. Suddenly, the trees opened into a small clearing. In the middle of the clearing lay a metallic object, partially buried in the dirt. It was large, almost like a spacecraft, but its design was unfamiliar. The surface shimmered under the faint moonlight, giving it an otherworldly appearance. Maya stepped forward, scanning the object with her handheld device. This isn't human," she whispered. "It's alien." Elena's voice came through their comms. "What do you see?" "Report." "It's a crash site," Carter replied. "And it's not ours." As the team moved closer to the object, they heard a faint sound, a low guttural groan. It was coming from behind the wreckage. The team froze, their hearts pounding. Slowly, Raj moved to the side, his weapon aimed and ready. He saw it first, a figure slumped against the wreckage. Its body was tall and thin, with strange, smooth skin that shimmered like the craft. It wasn't human. Its eyes glowed faintly, like the footprints they had seen earlier. The creature seemed injured, its chest heaving with labored breaths. "It's alive," Raj said, his voice low but steady. The team exchanged uneasy glances. This was a Zar'xian, one of the alien species known for their scouting missions. Stories of Zar'xians had been told for years, warning of their brutal tactics, and now one was sitting right in front of them, wounded and vulnerable. "Do we help it?" Sophia asked, breaking the tense silence. "Help it?" Raj scoffed. "It's a Zar'xian. For all we know, it's calling for reinforcements right now." The Zar'xian raised its head weakly and spoke in a voice that startled them all. "Help, please." The word hung in the air, heavy with meaning. The team didn't know what to do. Helping it could mean saving lives, or losing them all if it was a trap. But one thing was certain: the mystery of the signals was far from solved, and their night was only just beginning. The hidden threat. The Zar'xian's plea echoed in the quiet clearing, leaving the team frozen in place. Its voice was strange, gravelly and uneven, but it was unmistakably speaking their language. The glow of its eyes dimmed slightly, as if the effort to speak had drained its strength. Sophia, the medic, broke the silence first. "It's hurt. If we leave it, it'll die." Raj shot her a sharp look. "And what if it's a trap? Its friends could be nearby, watching us right now." Carter, ever the practical one, gestured to the wreckage. "Look around. This ship didn't crash by accident. Something took it down, and if this Zar'xian was scouting us, it wasn't working alone." The team tightened their perimeter, their eyes scanning the forest for any sign of movement. The rhythmic beeping of the signal had grown quieter now, almost like it was waiting for them to make a move. Mia knelt beside the Zar'xian, her curiosity outweighing her fear. "If it can talk, it can answer questions," she said, pulling out a small translator device. She activated it and looked into the alien's glowing eyes. "Why are you here?" The Zar'xian blinked slowly, its gaze shifting between the team. Its voice came out faint and labored. "Not here. For you. Running." "Running from what?" Mia pressed, her voice firm but calm. The alien winced, clutching its side where a deep, dark wound was visible. It whispered a single word: "Hunters." The team exchanged uneasy glances. Hunters. On this planet, Arcadia was supposed to be isolated, free from other species. The implication was clear. Whatever had brought this Zar'xian here was far worse than the creature itself. Before they could ask more, the forest suddenly erupted with sound. A low, humming vibration filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. The trees seemed to tremble as the noise reached a deafening pitch. "Something's coming," Carter said sharply, gripping his rifle. The Zar'xian struggled to sit upright, its glowing eyes widening in alarm. "Hide or die," it rasped. The team barely had time to react. A shadow moved through the trees, fast and silent. Then another, and another. Shapes, indistinct but large, encircled the clearing. The humming sound wasn't coming from machines. It was coming from these creatures. "Formation," Elena's voice barked over their comms. The team instinctively tightened their circle, weapons aimed outward. Sophia stayed crouched beside the Zar'xian, her hand on her med kit, unsure if she should help or leave the alien to its fate. Out of the shadows stepped one of the hunters. It was massive, towering over the humans with a body covered in sleek, chitinous armor that shimmered like liquid metal. Its face was an angular mask with no visible eyes, but it clearly knew where they were. The Zar'xian hissed weakly. "Not friends. Kill all." "Great," Raj muttered, his finger twitching on the trigger. "We just found out we're not the main problem." The hunter tilted its head, as if analyzing the group. Then, without warning, it lunged. Carter fired first, his shot sparking harmlessly off the creature's armor. The hunter moved with terrifying speed, closing the distance in seconds. "Spread out," Mia shouted, pulling a small EMP grenade from her belt. She tossed it at the hunter, and the device exploded in a burst of light and static. The hunter stumbled, its movements jerky and disoriented. Raj took the opportunity to fire his plasma rifle, aiming for the joints in the armor. This time, the hunter roared, a sound so deep it vibrated in their bones. It wasn't invincible, but it wasn't going down easily either. Meanwhile, Sophia turned to the Zar'xian. "If you want to live, help us." The alien looked at her with something like reluctant gratitude. It reached out a trembling hand and pressed a button on a device strapped to its wrist. The humming sound in the air shifted, and the other hunters paused, their heads snapping toward the Zar'xian. "What did you do?" Sophia asked. "Signal disrupt," The Zar'xian murmured. Brief window. The hunters, now disoriented, began retreating into the shadows, their forms blending seamlessly with the darkness. The team didn't wait to question their luck. They pulled back into the wreckage for cover, their hearts pounding. Alina's voice came through again. Report. What's happening? Carter replied quickly. We're not alone out here. Something's hunting us, and the Zar'xian. The comms went silent for a moment before Alina responded. Get back to base. Whatever you found, we need to prepare. As the team prepared to move, Mia glanced at the Zar'xian. It comes with us, she said firmly. It knows what's out there. Raj looked like he wanted to argue, but the sound of distant roars cut him off. Fine, he said, but if it tries anything, I'm putting it down. With the injured Zar'xian in tow, the team began their retreat, their nerves on edge. The forest felt alive, every shadow a potential threat. They had come to investigate a simple signal, but now they were walking back with an alien enemy turned ally, and the knowledge that Arcadia was no longer safe. Their mission had only just begun, but one thing was certain. Whatever came next would test their trust, their courage, and their survival. Face to face with the unknown. The journey back to the colony was anything but simple. The Zar'xian Scout, still clutching its side, stumbled often, its strength fading with every step. Sophia stayed close, supporting it despite Raj's constant warnings. Do you have any idea what you're doing? Raj hissed, his weapon never lowering. That thing could call its friends and turn this forest into a war zone. It hasn't. Sophia shot back, her voice sharper than usual. If it wanted us dead, we'd already be lying in pieces like its ship. The Zar'xian muttered something under its breath. Maya adjusted her translator and leaned closer. What did it say? The device crackled before translating. No, call them. They hunt. Me too. The alien's words lingered in the air like a cold wind. Whatever these hunters were, they weren't just after the humans. They wanted the Zar'xian too. The enemy of their enemy was standing right beside them, weak but alive. The team trudged forward in tense silence. The forest seemed to close in around them, the once familiar trees now twisting into unfamiliar shapes in the dim moonlight. Every rustle of leaves and snap of a twig set their nerves on edge. We're being watched, Carter whispered, his sharp eyes scanning the shadows. Watched by what? Maya asked, her voice low but steady. Everything, he replied grimly. After what felt like an eternity, the team reached a rocky outcrop overlooking the colony's distant lights. Relief washed over them, but it was short-lived. Just as they began to descend, the Zar'xian stumbled and collapsed. Sophia knelt beside it, pulling a med scanner from her kit. The device beeped furiously. Its vitals are crashing. Internal bleeding. I need to stabilize it, or it won't make it. Raj stepped forward, his rifle aimed. Let it die. It's not our problem. It is now, Sophia snapped, glaring at him. If it's telling the truth, we need it alive to understand what's coming for us. Raj didn't lower his weapon, but he didn't argue further. Sophia injected the Zar'xian with a coagulant from her kit. The alien groaned softly, its glowing eyes flickering open. Why? It rasped, its gaze locking onto Sophia. Why what? She asked, confused. Why? Help me? Sophia hesitated, then answered simply. Because you helped us, and if we don't work together, we're all dead. The Zar'xian stared at her for a long moment before nodding weakly. It whispered something that the translator struggled to interpret. You are not like others. Before Sophia could respond, a sharp, high-pitched screech cut through the air. The team froze. Carter's face went pale. They're back. The hunters had found them. Out of the shadows came two hunters, their metallic forms glinting faintly in the moonlight. Unlike the first one, these moved in perfect synchronization, their heads turning as if sharing one mind. Their humming vibrations resonated, shaking loose rocks from the cliffside. Raj didn't wait for orders. He fired a burst from his plasma rifle, but the shots bounced harmlessly off the hunter's armored hides. One of the creatures tilted its head, almost mocking him, before lunging forward with terrifying speed. "Scatter!" Carter yelled, diving behind a boulder. The team split up, using the terrain for cover. Maya tossed another EMP grenade, but this time, the hunters were prepared. One of them caught the device mid-air and crushed it in its hand, letting out a low guttural growl. "Not good," Maya shouted, ducking as a massive claw swiped inches above her head. The Zar'xian, still weak, managed to stand, leaning heavily on a rock. It raised its wrist device and pressed a sequence of buttons. The hunters paused briefly, their humming vibrations faltering. "What are you doing?" Sophia shouted. "Confuse, disrupt signal," the Zar'xian said, its voice strained. "Can't hold long." Taking advantage of the moment, Carter aimed for a gap in the hunter's armor at their joints. His shot struck true, and one of the hunters staggered, letting out a pained screech. Raj followed up with a barrage of plasma fire, finally bringing the first hunter to its knees. The second hunter didn't hesitate. It leaped onto a boulder, its claws glowing faintly as it prepared to pounce. Before it could strike, the Zar'xian stepped forward, holding up its wrist device. The hunter froze, its head tilting in confusion. The Zar'xian spoke in its guttural language, words flowing rapidly as if issuing a command. The hunter hesitated for a moment before retreating into the shadows, its hunting vibrations fading into the distance. The team stared in stunned silence. "What just happened?" Raj asked, his voice a mix of awe and suspicion. "It listened to me," the Zar'xian said weakly, slumping to the ground. For now." Mia echoed, her frustration evident. "What does that mean?" The Zar'xian's glowing eyes dimmed as it struggled to speak. "They are machines, connected. I broke link. But they adapt, will return." The words sent a chill through the group. The hunters weren't just creatures. They were something far more dangerous, intelligent, relentless, and evolving. Carter broke the silence. "We need to move. Now." The team hurried toward the colony, the Zar'xian limping between Sophia and Mia. The hunters had retreated, but the forest felt alive with unseen dangers. The Zar'xian's warning echoed in their minds. They will return. As the colony's gates came into view, Alina's voice came through the comms again. "You're late. What happened out there?" Carter answered grimly. "We found the signal source, and we're bringing it back with us. But you're not going to like what it has to say." The gates opened, and the team entered the safety of the colony walls. But as they glanced back at the forest, they knew safety was a fleeting illusion. The true danger was only just beginning. Betrayal or truth. Inside the colony's command center, tension was thick in the air. Commander Alina Ward stood at the head of the room, her sharp gaze fixed on the Zar'xian scout slumped in a chair. Its glowing eyes flickered faintly, a sign of exhaustion. Around her, the team gave their hurried report, each voice laced with urgency and unease. "You brought it here." Alina's tone was a mix of disbelief and anger. "Do you realize what you've done? If this thing is a scout, its people will know exactly where to find us." "It's not a scout anymore," Sophia said firmly. "It's running from something worse. Those hunters aren't here for us. They are here for it. And if we don't figure out what's going on, they'll destroy everything." Alina's jaw tightened, but before she could respond, the Zar'xian raised its head. "Hunters, destroy all," it said, its voice weak but deliberate. The translator crackled, but the words came through clear enough. "No colony, no Zar'xians, only death." Alina narrowed her eyes. "Why should we believe you?" The Zar'xian hesitated, then pointed to its wrist device. "Show. Proof." Mia stepped forward, her curiosity outweighing her caution. "What kind of proof?" The Zar'xian pressed a sequence of buttons on the device, and a holographic projection flickered to life in the center of the room. The image showed a massive fleet of alien ships, Zar'xian ships, drifting lifelessly in space. Some were broken in half, their glowing cores darkened. Around them, shadowy forms moved, hunters, tearing through the remains like vultures. The room fell silent. Even Alina couldn't hide her shock. "That's your fleet?" Raj asked, his voice skeptical. "Why would these hunters attack their own allies?" Not allies," the Zar'xian said, its glowing eyes locking onto him. "Zar'xians, arrogant, thought could control. But hunters, learn, grow. Now, hunt all." Carter folded his arms, his expression hard. "So what's your plan? Run to us for help. You invaded human colonies before. Why should we fight your battle?" The Zar'xian struggled to sit upright, its movements slow but deliberate. No invader. Fled because refused. Zar'xians fight. I survive." Its words struck a chord, though the room remained tense. Mia, ever the tech expert, was already scanning the hologram for details. "These hunters," she said, pointing to the shadowy figures. "They're not just organic, are they? They're part machine." "Yes," the Zar'xian confirmed. "Evolve. Adapt. Each fight, stronger." Alina finally spoke, her voice steady but cold. "So why come here? What do you want from us?" "Not want," the Zar'xian replied. "Warn." The meeting ended in heated debate. Some of the council members wanted the Zar'xian handed over to the hunters, believing it might buy the colony time. Others argued for preparation, using the aliens' knowledge to defend themselves. Alina stood firm, refusing to make a decision without more proof. Later that night, the team gathered in the barracks. The air was heavy with unease. "What if it's lying?" Raj said, pacing back and forth. "What if this is just some elaborate ploy to weaken us? Zar'xians are ruthless. It could be calling reinforcements right now." "It's not lying," Sophia countered. "You saw the hologram. Those hunters aren't just after it. They're after everyone." "But why us?" Carter said, leaning against the wall. "Why now? There are plenty of other colonies out there." Mia, who had been quiet until now, looked up from her datapad. "I think I know why." She held up the device, showing a map of the region. "The hunters' movements follow a pattern. They're targeting resource-rich worlds, places like ours." Carter frowned. "So it's not just about the Zar'xian. We're in their path." Mia nodded. "And if the Zar'xian's right, they'll adapt to whatever we throw at them. We're not just dealing with invaders. We're dealing with predators." The room fell silent. The weight of their situation was finally sinking in. The next morning, the Zar'xian was escorted to the colony's engineering bay, where Mia had set up an interrogation device. The alien's wrist module was connected to a human computer, translating data from its ship. Holograms flickered to life, showing schematics of the hunters' forms, their technology, and their weaknesses, if they had any. Mia pointed to a section of the hologram. "This looks like a central processor," she said. "If we can disrupt their network, we might be able to confuse them long enough to fight back." The Zar'xian shook its head. "Processor. Move. Hunters. Never stay same." Sophia frowned. "What does that mean?" "They learn," the Zar'xian said. "Every attack. Change. Only way. Destroy all." "All of them," Raj repeated. "That's suicide." "Not if we hit them first," Maya said, her eyes narrowing. "The hunters' next target is close. If we intercept them before they adapt, we might have a chance." Alina, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. "And what happens if this alien betrays us? Leads us into a trap?" The Zar'xian met her gaze, its voice steady despite its weakened state. "Then, kill me. But hunters, not stop." The room fell into tense silence. Alina finally nodded. "Prepare the team. We'll make our stand." As the colony buzzed with preparations, the Zar'xian sat alone, its glowing eyes dimmed in thought. It had risked everything by coming here. The humans had a choice to make: trust a former enemy or face an unstoppable force alone. And time was running out. The ticking clock. The colony was a hive of activity as the people prepared for what could be their final stand. Engineers fortified defenses. Technicians worked on integrating the Zar'xians' data into their systems, and soldiers armed themselves with whatever weapons they could find. The hum of urgency filled the air, but beneath it was a silent, gnawing fear. Would it be enough? Commander Alina Ward stood in the command center, her sharp gaze fixed on the holographic map displayed before her. It showed the hunters' predicted path, a red line cutting directly toward the colony. "We have less than 6 hours," Maya reported, typing furiously on her console. "They're fast, and if their trajectory holds, they'll hit us before nightfall." "And if they adapt to our defenses?" Raj asked grimly, leaning against the table with his plasma rifle slung over his shoulder. "We'll be sitting ducks." "They'll adapt," the Zar'xian said, its voice rasping as it stood near the edge of the room. It still looked weak, but its glowing eyes burned with determination. "But not if you strike first." Alina turned to the alien, her expression skeptical. "We don't even know how to take them down. You've given us data, but no real weaknesses." "They have one," the Zar'xian said, pointing to a section of the hologram. It zoomed in on a strange, pulsating core at the center of the hunter's network. "Hive mind. All linked. Destroy core. Disrupt all." "And where is this core?" Carter asked, crossing his arms. The Zar'xian hesitated. "Always. In center. Hunters protect. Move with fleet." Alina frowned. "So we'll have to punch through their forces to even reach it." "Yes," the Zar'xian said. "But hunters don't expect. Humans, unpredictable." A bitter laugh escaped Raj. "Unpredictable. More like unprepared." As the clock ticked down, the team finalized their plan. They would lure the hunters into a trap, using decoys to create confusion and expose the core. A small strike team, consisting of Carter, Raj, Mia, Sophia, and the Zar'xian, would infiltrate the core's location and disable it while the rest of the colony held the line. Alina addressed the gathered colony leaders and soldiers. "This is it. We stand together, or we fall. The hunters are fast, adaptive, and relentless. But we have something they don't: each other. Fight smart, fight hard, and remember, we're protecting more than just ourselves. We're protecting everyone who calls Arcadia home." Cheers erupted, though they were tinged with desperation. Everyone knew the odds were against them. The first sign of the hunter's approach came as a faint hum, a vibration in the ground that grew stronger with each passing minute. It was as if the forest itself was trembling in fear. The team stood ready at the edge of the colony, their weapons drawn. "They're here," Carter said quietly, his sharp eyes scanning the horizon. Out of the trees, the hunters emerged. Sleek, metallic forms moved with inhuman precision, their numbers far greater than anyone had expected. Each one emitted the same eerie hum, their collective presence creating a sound that seemed to resonate in the very air. "They'd brought more," Raj muttered, gripping his rifle tightly. "Good," Maya said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "The more they focus on us, the less they'll notice the trap." The decoys were activated, a series of drones rigged with explosive charges and noise emitters. They flew out in chaotic patterns, drawing the hunters' attention. The machines paused, their heads tilting as if analyzing the sudden chaos. "Now," Alina barked over the comms. The colony's automated defenses roared to life, plasma turrets and missile launchers targeting the distracted hunters. Explosions lit up the battlefield, and for a moment, it seemed like the plan might work. But the hunters were quick to adapt. They shifted their formations, their movements becoming erratic to confuse the targeting systems. One by one, the turrets fell silent as the hunters overwhelmed them. The strike team used the chaos to slip through the lines, moving quickly and silently toward the core's location. The Zar'xian led the way, its glowing eyes scanning for traps and patrols. It seemed to know the hunters' tactics, anticipating their movements before they could strike. "They're pulling back," Carter observed as they neared the core's projected location. "Why?" "Protecting core," the Zar'xian replied. "No, we come." Sophia glanced at it. "Then why haven't they stopped us?" The Zar'xian hesitated, its glowing eyes dimming slightly. "They test you. Learn your ways. Humans. Dangerous. Not exactly comforting," Raj muttered. Finally, they reached the core. It was hidden in a clearing, surrounded by a protective shield that pulsed with a strange, rhythmic energy. Inside, the core itself floated, a massive crystalline structure that glowed with an eerie, shifting light. "That's it," Mia whispered, her fingers already working on disabling the shield. "Give me a minute." "You've got 30 seconds, Carter said, his eyes scanning the perimeter. "They're not going to let us do this without a fight." As if on cue, the hunters appeared, stepping out of the shadows in perfect synchronization. They moved slowly at first, then charged as one. "Here they come," Raj shouted, firing his plasma rifle. The others followed suit, their weapons lighting up the clearing. The Zar'xian stepped forward, raising its wrist device. A burst of energy shot out, temporarily disrupting the hunters' formation. "Hurry," it rasped, its voice strained. Mia worked furiously, sweat dripping down her face as she bypassed the shield's defenses. Almost there, just a few more seconds. The hunters recovered quickly, their movements becoming more erratic as they adapted to the team's tactics. One of them lunged at Sophia, its claws narrowly missing her as she rolled out of the way. "Mia," Carter yelled, firing at the hunter to keep it at bay. "Done," Mia shouted, stepping back as the shield flickered and collapsed. The Zar'xian turned to the core. "Now, destroy." The team didn't hesitate. Raj fired a grenade launcher, the explosion striking the core directly. It cracked, its glow flickering wildly before shattering in a blinding burst of light. The hunters froze mid-attack, their bodies twitching erratically before collapsing like puppets with their strings cut. The clearing fell silent, the only sound the team's heavy breathing. Did we win?" Sophia asked, her voice shaky. The Zar'xian nodded slowly. "Core, broken. Hunters, no link." For the first time since the mission began, a faint sense of hope filled the air. But as the team looked at the destroyed core, they couldn't shake the feeling that this victory was only the beginning of something much larger. The final stand. The shattered remains of the hunter's core lay scattered across the clearing, its once brilliant glow fading into darkness. The team stood frozen for a moment, the silence unnerving after the chaos of battle. But the reprieve was short-lived. The Zar'xian's wrist device began emitting a frantic series of beeps. Its glowing eyes widened in alarm. "No, not over." "What do you mean?" Carter demanded, his weapon still raised. The Zar'xian gestured toward the horizon. "Back up. Secondary hive. Always come." Raj let out a bitter laugh, his voice tinged with frustration. "You're telling me this now?" Before anyone could respond, the ground began to vibrate again, this time more intensely than before. The air seemed to hum with a strange, unnatural energy. From the distance, a dark, shifting mass appeared, moving with terrifying speed. "What is that?" Sophia whispered, fear creeping into her voice. The Zar'xian's voice was grim. "The mother controls all." The colony's command center was in chaos when the team called in their report. Elena's voice crackled over the comms, filled with urgency. "What do you mean a secondary hive? I thought destroying the core would stop them." "The core was just part of their network," Mia explained, her voice steady despite the tension. "This mother is the true controller. And it's coming straight for us. How much time do we have? Elena asked sharply. Carter glanced at the horizon, where the mass was growing larger, its movements unnervingly fluid. Not much. 15 minutes, tops. Elena's tone shifted to cold resolve. Then we hold the line. Get back to the colony. Now. The team sprinted through the forest, the Zar'xian moving with surprising speed despite its injuries. The hum of the approaching mother was growing louder, resonating in their bones. The forest itself seemed to react, the trees trembling as if in fear. Faster, Carter barked, pushing the team to their limits. We don't have time to waste. They burst through the tree line and into the colony's perimeter just as the first tendrils of the mother reached the outskirts. The entity was unlike anything they had faced before. It was massive, a pulsating organic mechanical mass that shifted and grew as it moved. Tendrils extended like living cables, tearing through the ground and structures with terrifying precision. Targets acquired. Elena's voice boomed over the comms. All units, open fire. The colony's defenses roared to life again, missiles and plasma bolts streaking through the air toward the monstrous entity. Explosions erupted against its surface, but the mother absorbed the impacts, its form rippling as it adapted. Mia's voice crackled over the comms. Its energy signature is off the charts. Standard weapons won't stop it. Elena's voice came back, sharp and unyielding. Then find something that will. The team regrouped at the central command post, panting and covered in dirt. The Zar'xian was already scanning its wrist device, its glowing eyes narrowing. Must strike. Core inside. You want us to go into that thing? Raj asked, his voice incredulous. You've lost your mind. Not want. The Zar'xian replied, its voice firm. Only way. Mia looked at the Zar'xian's hologram. It showed a map of the mother's internal structure, a labyrinth of shifting corridors leading to a central core. If we can get inside and destroy the core, we might shut it down permanently. And if we fail? Sophia asked quietly. The Zar'xian didn't answer. It didn't need to. Elena approved the plan with little hesitation. This is a suicide mission, she said bluntly, her eyes scanning the team. But if anyone can pull it off, it's you. The strike team armed themselves with the colony's strongest explosives, their faces set with grim determination. The Zar'xian led the way as they approached the mother, its form towering over the colony like a living storm. The tendrils lashed out as they neared, forcing the team to dodge and weave. Raj fired a plasma grenade, clearing a path through the writhing mass. Move, move, move. The Zar'xian guided them to an opening in the mother's surface, a pulsating, membranous entrance that seemed to shift and breathe. Without hesitation, it stepped inside. The team followed, weapons raised, into the heart of the alien monstrosity. Inside, the mother was a nightmare of organic and mechanical chaos. The walls pulsed with a rhythmic energy, and strange, insect-like drones scuttled along the surfaces, their glowing eyes tracking the intruders. Stay close, Carter ordered, his voice low. No one gets separated. The Zar'xian moved ahead, its wrist device emitting a soft glow as it navigated the labyrinth. Core, near. The team pushed forward, battling the drones as they came. Each one was faster and stronger than the last, forcing the team to adapt on the fly. Raj's rifle overheated, forcing him to switch to a blade, while Sophia threw makeshift explosives crafted from their dwindling supplies. Finally, they reached the core. It was massive, a pulsating sphere of light and shadow suspended in the center of the chamber. Tendrils extended from it, feeding the mother's every movement. Mia set the charges, her hand steady despite the chaos. 2 minutes, she said. We need to get clear. The core began to shift, its surface rippling as if aware of the threat. The drones doubled their assault, swarming the team with relentless fury. The Zar'xian stepped forward, raising its wrist device. It emitted a burst of energy, temporarily disabling the drones. Go, it said, turning to face the oncoming swarm. I. Stay. What? Sophia had yelled. You can't. No time, the Zar'xian interrupted. Must hold, or charges fail. Carter grabbed Sophia's arm. We have to move. Now. The teen retreated, their hearts heavy as the Zar'xian fought to hold the drones back. They barely cleared the entrance when the charges detonated, a massive explosion ripping through the mother. The entity let out a deafening, inhuman scream, its tendrils thrashing wildly before collapsing in a lifeless heap. The team stumbled back to the colony, battered but alive. The mother was gone, its remnants scattered across the landscape. The colony was safe, for now. But as they looked to the horizon, they couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The hunters were relentless, and the galaxy was far from secure. Their victory had come at a cost, but it was a reminder of one undeniable truth. Humans, even in the face of impossible odds, would always find a way to fight back. A fragile alliance. The sun rose over the colony, casting a pale light on the aftermath of the battle. Smoke lingered in the air, and the wreckage of the mother sprawled across the forest, a haunting reminder of the enemy's power. The colonists worked tirelessly to rebuild what they could, their faces etched with exhaustion and resolve. Inside the command center, the team gathered, their bodies battered but their spirits unbroken. Commander Elena Ward stood at the center of the room, her arms crossed as she addressed them. You did what I thought was impossible, Elena said, her voice steady. You stopped the hunters and saved this colony. But the coast, she paused, her gaze flickering toward the empty space where the Zar'xian should have stood, was heavy. The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling over them. The Zar'xian sacrifice lingered in their minds, its final moments etched into their memories. It had chosen to stay behind, to fight so they could escape, an enemy turned ally, proving that even the most unlikely of bonds could form in the face of extinction. As the colony worked to recover, Mia and Sophia sifted through the data salvaged from the Zar'xian's wrist device. It held a wealth of information, schematics of hunter technology, data on their hive mind network, and most importantly, a map. This isn't just about us, Maya said, her voice breaking the silence. The hunters are targeting other colonies, other planets. They won't stop with Arcadia. Sophia leaned over her shoulder, her expression grim. Then we have to warn them. We can't let this happen again. Elena entered the room, her eyes narrowing as she glanced at the data. If we send this to Earth Command, it could change everything. But it'll also make us a target. We're already a target, Carter said, stepping forward. The hunters won't forget us, and if they adapt again, the next attack will be worse. Elena nodded, her jaw tightening. Then we share it. The galaxy needs to know what's coming. Days turned into weeks as the colony rebuilt itself, but the scars of the battle remained. The forest, once vibrant and full of life, now bore the marks of destruction. The colonists worked harder than ever, their resolve tempered by the knowledge that they had faced extinction and survived. Raj, usually the cynic, found himself at the colony's outer perimeter one evening, staring at the remnants of the mother. Sophia approached him, her footsteps soft. Thinking about what's next, she asked. Raj nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Yeah, about how this wasn't the end. The hunters will be back. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but they'll come. Sophia smiled faintly, and when they do, we'll be ready. He glanced at her, a rare grin tugging at the corner of his mouth. You sound like you believe that. I do, Sophia replied, because we've faced worse odds, and because we're not alone anymore. A month after the battle, the first transmission came from Earth Command. The colony's message had reached them, along with the Zar'xian's data. Reinforcements would come, supplies, weapons, and specialists trained to deal with alien threats. But more importantly, the galaxy was awakening to a grim reality. Humanity was no longer fighting each other. They were fighting to survive. The Lena read the message aloud to the gathered colonists, her voice carrying hope. We are not isolated. We are not forgotten. And we are not alone. Together, we will stand against whatever comes next. The colonists cheered, their voices rising in unison. But in their hearts, they knew the road ahead would not be easy. As the team stood together on the colony's wall, watching the stars, Maya spoke up. Do you think the Zar'xian people will ever know what it did for us? Carter shrugged, his expression thoughtful. Maybe. Maybe not. But we'll remember. Sophia nodded. It wasn't just an enemy. It was something else. Someone else. Raj smirked. Don't get too sentimental. It might have been the only good Zar'xian out there. Maybe, Maya said, her gaze fixed on the stars. But if there's one, there could be others. And maybe one day we'll fight together instead of against each other. The group fell silent, the vastness of space stretching before them. They didn't know what the future held, but they knew one thing for certain. They had survived the impossible, and they would do it again if they had to. Humanity had faced its first encounter with a true galactic threat. And though the cost was great, they had proven something undeniable. Humanity would endure, together.